were a Cardinals fan, sure, maybe you wanted to win the division. Maybe at least you wanted to make the playoffs as a wild card. But most importantly of all, you wanted to see improvement from this team in 2024 under head coach Jonathan Gannon. And you did, right? This team ended up going 8-9. So they won 8 games, 4 more than each of the previous 2 seasons. So they're right there. It was a team that was active in the offseason, had plenty of draft pick capital that they spent. They improved. But in a league where you often see teams, at least 1 or 2 every year, go from worst to first and, have 6, 7 win improvements, how excited or how much celebrating are you going to be doing for a team going from 4 wins to 8? I'm just saying. Their offense was solid, not spectacular, solid. They were 12th in points scored, 11th in total yards allowed. Their defense improved, 15th in points allowed, 21st in total yards allowed. And at one point in time, if you remember back last season, the Cardinals were sitting there after 10 weeks. They were 6-4 heading into the bye. They were certainly well within the mix. They certainly were in a spot where you could say, hey, they got a shot at this thing. Unfortunately, the bye week happened, and when they came back, they went 2-5 in their last 7 games, and they ultimately missed the playoffs. Which you can blame on a lot of different things, right? But, just when you think about the Cardinals right now, who do you really think about? You think about Kyler Murray, but not so much for him being really good. You think about it more of what's his ceiling or what else is in his contract because they're worried he's not going to watch game film, right? Now you might think of a Marvin Harrison Jr. because they just drafted him 4th overall last year, but their top pass catching weapon and option in 2024 was Trey McBride, is a guy you feel like nobody fucking talks about. Perhaps one of the most underrated players in all of the NFL. But who is there? Who's their marquee guy right now? I just don't think they have one. And they went into this offseason, looking to make some type of splash. They couldn't make a ton of splashes, but they at least wanted to make one, and they did when they signed Josh Sweat away from the Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles. They needed another pass rusher. They've certainly added one into the fold. They brought in Dalvin Tomlinson to be a part of their defensive interior. Calais Campbell as well comes back home. Just for talking about Calais Campbell, here's a guy that he's been around for a long time. But what a really good and productive player he's been for so many years. He's one of those guys that if I saw people try to start a movement someday to say he belongs in the Pro Football Hall of Fame, I would not disagree with them. He's gotten a little more in terms of postseason accolades than, let's say, a Levante David, right? But fundamentally and ultimately, another really under the radar, not discounted, but almost kind of forgotten about type of player. There we go, my Calais Campbell soapbox. Anyways, not a ton of movement here, obviously, right? Oh, they did also sign Akeem Davis-Gaither. So they were adding pieces to the defense because they knew that was still a priority, and that's where they needed to invest some effort and some energy. And that continued in the NFL draft. When you look at their first 3 picks, they were all on the defensive side of the ball. And I get that your defense wasn't great. They weren't even technically average last year. They were improved, but that wasn't saying a whole lot compared to the previous couple of seasons. But were you really in a spot where your offense was so star-spangled awesome that you could totally ignore that side of the ball in the first 2 days of the draft? I don't think so. Now, when I look at some of the players they took, I'm like, okay, it was hard to knock them. They drafted Walter Nolan from Ole Miss. He's going to be a pass rusher extraordinaire for them. I think he's certainly going to be a force, but he's out till at least week 5. So there you go. You look at a guy you took in round 1. You want those guys to come in and make an impact year 1, and you're not going to get anything out of them the first quarter of the season. Will Johnson, though, he's a day 1 starter at corner, which isn't a big shock. The fact that they were able to get him where they got him in the draft was a steal. It absolutely was. And then Jordan Birch, the edge rusher, he's going to provide some more pass rushing pop and depth for them. But again, I come back to, why did they focus so much on defense alone? Was your offense really that great and awesome that you didn't need to address it at all in either of the first 2 days of the NFL draft? I don't think so. So now where do we look at for this team? What are their strengths? What are their question marks or weaknesses? I look at their strengths. I think their offensive line is pretty good. Paris Johnson was really good last year at left tackle. They've got some other guys in the fold that are good as well. Then you look at that offense and you look at that combination of Trey McBride and Marvin Harrison Jr. And yes, I listed them in the right order in terms of how great they are and their importance to the team. That's a situation where you presume or you assume that Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to take a step forward in year two and Trey McBride is still going to be a stud. A lot of teams wish they had that 1-2 combination in their passing game. And then you look at their running game with what they got in the backfield, plus Kyler Murray certainly is a threat and a weapon as a runner. This is a team that should be able to run the ball effectively and run the ball at high volume as well in 2025. But plenty of question marks here. I look at their linebacking core, really lacks an impact player. And when you look at the system and scheme that they run, like maybe you're looking at Josh Sweat to be that guy, but until it's proven, they don't have one, right? And then I look at their pass rush. Again, you drafted Walter Nolan, but he's going to be out a few weeks. You drafted Jordan Burge, but he's going to be in a more of a backup and kind of rotational role player slot right away. And then Josh Sweat, yeah, that was a big signing, but he's only one guy. One guy. They drafted Darius Robinson last year in round one, and he really didn't do much. He had injury problems and so forth. But who's going to get to the quarterback on this Cardinals defense? And then I look at Kyler Murray's consistency and just overall potential, right? Like, you got to think about it now. We're now in the 7th year of Kyler Murray's career. Think about that. He was the number 1 overall pick in 2019. 2019. I think you've pretty much seen what Kyler Murray is going to be. He's not a total scrub, but he's not a stud. So, boy, if you're going to have him be the quarterback and you're going to pay him a lot of money, you better find a way to load up the situation around him. And the situation just isn't loaded up around him. And as a result, you'll see instances or moments where Kyler Murray flashes and you're like, wow, that was really good. And then you have moments you say, oh my God, that is absolutely awful. He's got to be more consistent at a better level than he has been historically. Now, as we look ahead to the Cardinals' schedule for 2025, I really look at 2 stretches that are going to be critical here that will determine how the season goes for them above all else. I start off with weeks 1 through 6. They've got the Saints on the road and then the Panthers in week 2. And just to look at those 2 matchups, like if you're the Cardinals and you want to contend with the other teams in this division, you really want to be trying to start 2-0 there against 2 teams that you presume are towards the bottom of the NFC. Those are games. 2 straight divisional games at San Francisco and hosting Seattle. You hope you win at least one of them. And then the next 2 games, so that's 2 more, 3 in a row at home. Weeks 5 and 6, you host Tennessee. Week 6 is actually at Indianapolis and the Colts, but it doesn't matter whether they're starting Danny Dimes or Anthony Richardson at that point. There's a potential opportunity here for this team to start off like a 4-2. And if they get off to a good start here this year like they did last year, it could put them in the catbird seat or put them in a confident, comfortable position heading into the rest of the year. And then you get down to weeks 13 through 18. They go to Tampa Bay, they host the Rams, they go to Houston, host Atlanta, go to Cincinnati, host the Rams. So you're looking at all of those teams that reasonably believe that they could be in the playoff mix, and certainly by others are being projected to be in the playoff mix in some way, shape, or form. So whereas the first 6 weeks of the schedule is a little softer for the Cardinals, it can get really tough there towards the end. So my advice to them is if you want to be in the mix for the division, you want to be in the mix for a wild card in the NFC, you better get your wins in early. Don't be in a position or a spot where you have to try and win a bunch at the end of the year. Because if you are, I just think you're going to come up short. It's just not a good enough team right now. I think they're going to finish like 8-9 and 3rd in the NFC West. Now, with that said, if they get off to that really good start, build some confidence, stay healthy, who knows? But I just don't think they have enough to hang with the Rams and the 49ers in this division this year.